Well, hello and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to talk about two helpers actually this time. One of them is called every and the other one is called sum. The reason why we're going to tackle them both at the same time is because they are really similar in how they work. One difference about these two is that they take an array of objects and they basically produce a single value out of the entire array of objects, and that value is going to be a boolean, so it's going to be either true or false. But that's all confusing. Let's actually write some code and it will all make sense. So as always, let's make first of all a classical JS example that is going to be using for loops, and then we will convert to ES6 with these two helpers as always. Okay, so let me put comments as always, classical JS example. Okay, we will have an array of devices, like the storage devices. So like hard disks, solid state drives, USB flashes, things like that. And like our task is that we have produced like a bunch of video tutorials on this code worker channel, and now we need to store them, but we're not sure like if we can store them on any of our devices, like whether some of our devices can actually hold that data because it's huge, or if all of the devices can actually hold it. Again, it will be much clearer once I keep on writing this code. So first off, let's declare an array of devices. Okay, now this array is going to be of the devices that I just explained. Let's say that we have something like ID of the device. Let's say this is the ID of 1. We have a type which could be like hard disk, and we have capacity of say 64 gigabytes. Next we have ID 2. Next we have say solid state drive, and capacity is a bit low because we were cheap and we didn't want to buy a huge one. And then let's say we have ID 3 and the type is simply USB flash, and capacity is say 16 because it's just a stick and it doesn't hold, even though this is not true anymore. Bear with me for this example. Okay, so now we are asking basically two questions. First question is whether all of our devices can store our video material, and second, whether some of our devices can store our video material. Okay, let's say that our video material of super awesome tutorials is exactly 32 gigabytes. Okay, so let's check that. So we're going to have two variables. One is going to be for this first question and the second one is going to be for the second question. So let's create them. I'm going to create var all devices can store videos, and only some devices can store videos. Now I'm going to initialize the first one to true because we want to like make a premise that yes, all of them can store, and then if we find one of them that can't, then we can say no, all devices can't store videos. So we kind of want to do like the opposite. We want to like make a premise that yes, they can, and then if something happens we will revert that. And same holds true for the only some devices can store data, but like in opposite manner. First of all, we will assume that no device can store videos, but then if we are able to find a single instance of a device that can store video, then we can say, oh, only some devices can store videos. That's actually true. So again, if this is confusing, it won't be for long, so just follow me. So now let's use the for loop. So we are going to create a new for loop. I is equal to 0 as long as I is less than devices dot length I plus plus. Okay, and now we want to check, now we want to see whether the current device capacity is smaller than 32 gigabytes. So let's ask that. So if devices at I dot capacity is less than 32 gigabytes, well, let's think what this means. Well, if the device's capacity is less than 32 gigabytes, then we have just found one instance that can't hold our super awesome video tutorials. So if that happens, we know that these all devices can store videos can't be true, because we just found an instance that can't hold it. So let's actually set this variable to false in this example, in this case actually, equals false. But then let's think about the else part. So if the current device can actually store 32 gigabytes or more, that means that there is definitely some device that can store videos. In fact, we have just found one. So we can say here else only some device can store videos is equal to true, because we just found that instance, and that's definitely true in this case. So right now, if I come here and I simply console.log output like both the values, I'll put it like this so we can have this string alongside the results. And let me copy this. Okay, by the way, as always, like, I'm using Node in this series. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. You can use like Chrome's dev tools. You have like console window over there. You can use like JSBean. You can use like many other different sites that allow you to like type JS code and pretty much have it executed in front of you. So I'm going to go node and then the file name, and as you can see, we got all devices can store videos. That's false, because like this one can't. And we have got that only some devices can store video. That's true, because like here are two instances in which they can store videos. So I hope this wasn't too confusing. I mean, like, the wording and everything, I guess it kinda is, but if you've come to this point, then I guess it's everything perfectly clear. So now, as always, let's revert, well, not revert, let's move forward with the ES6 and these two helpers example. So I'll write here ES6 plus every plus sum, and let me copy actually this so we can know what we need to do. We don't need to remember it. Okay, so now we have array of devices. So let's start with the every helper. So as always, these are the functions that you call upon the arrays. So I'm going to start with devices.every. Then every helper expects an anonymous function or a so-called iterator function. So let's provide one. So function like this. Again, we need here a parameter. Again, naming convention, you want to call it pretty much the singular form of whatever collection you're iterating over. So that's a device. And now we want to return device.capacity is greater than or equal to 32 gigabytes. So this every helper will run for each of these objects inside an array, and if all of them satisfy this condition, then this will return true. So let's assign the result to this same variable. So this is the answer to the first question. So like const, we're asking whether all the devices can store these videos, and I'm going to assign it like this. And then let's console.log. Again, I'll do this. Okay, and if I open the terminal and I run this file again, you again see all devices can store videos is actually false. So this every helper came across an instance where this didn't hold true, so it resulted with a false. So let's do the similar thing but using the sum helper. So we are again going to call that function upon this array, so sum. Again, it will expect anonymous function. Again, that function we have a parameter, let's call it device. And again, we want to check whether the device capacity is greater than or equal to 32 gigabytes. Now that is answer to our second question, so let's actually copy, that's faster. Let's copy this variable, const, like that. Let me copy this as well, and then I want to output the results of this second variable. So let's check now what we get. And as you can see, we're getting the same things we got in our first classical JS example. Now, of course, as I do pretty much every of these videos, we can turn this into a fat arrow function. This is a single return statement, so let's apply this neat trick here, like that, and same holds true for the second example. Okay, let's simply check to make sure that we didn't screw something up. No, everything is working as it's supposed to. And now let's compare. I mean, you can see the difference again. I don't want to repeat myself, but again, just like some takeaways, we are not worrying about like the for loop structure, semicolons that we can easily miss, the bounds of an array, and just like when you read someone else's for loop, it can be used for so many different things that you really need to look at this logic inside and figure out what the user actually did here. But if you come across this and you know these two helpers, whenever you see every and then some criteria over here, you know the previous programmer that did that he was simply checking whether every object inside of this array holds these criteria to be true. And same goes for this sum. So I would argue this is a really good use case of both the every and the sum helper. And so this is the end of this video. Again, I hope you had some fun and you learned something, and that I'll see you in some of my next videos.